Hello guys, I am so excited because of what I have gotten a technique for you to make your work easy, especially your academic research. So many of my students have been commenting that they don't understand this, they want me to put them through, and I've been looking for ways to make it easy for them. So in this video, I'll be discussing and highlighting basic components that is required to have an outstanding project, academic research thesis, or your dissertation. You don't need to be looking for who to write it for you any longer. You can actually do this on your own by yourself with the help of the internet and everything at your bed at call. You just need a guidance, and this video will be guiding you through. If this is for you, let's get started. Hooray! First thing first, I'd like to show you the three basic things, the three basic questions that forms the essence of your research. What are those questions that you need to ask yourself before commencing on a research work? One is why. Why do you need to embark on a research? What? What is the research all about? And how? How do you intend to perform the research? In my next slide, I try to explain what is a research proposal. What do we mean by a research proposal? An academic research proposal can simply be defined as what you will investigate. This is where the question comes in, why it's important, and how you will go about the research. The format of the research proposal varies between fields, between disciplines. Like for those in the earth, it varies from those in the social sciences and so on. But most proposals have some basic components, some basic elements, which involves what I will be discussing in these videos. Let's look at the components. One of the components is a title page, the second abstract, followed by an introduction, then a literature review or review of related literature, then followed by methodology, what method you want to use in your research, then your reference list. That depend on what format you are using. We have so many formats that requires a reference list. In my next video, I'll be showing you more of the APA format of referencing. Then we have the research duration. This is optional. Some schools or institutions may require to know how long will it take, but most of the time it's added to your methodology, your research duration, how long will your research take, followed by the budget. The budget is also optional for some schools that are ready to sponsor a research work. They want to know what it requires for you to have a successful research project. So they want to know how much they are to give you. So in that aspect, you will need to provide a budget towards that. So there's an example given to you in the next slide, and that is the cover page. A cover page is a simplified aspect of your work. It shows the topic of the work, it shows your name, your registration number, your department and the university, as well as the year and month that it was done, that your work was presented to either your department or to the university. So these are basic things you require in a cover page. While this is an example of your work, that is in the aspect of where is it going to be presented, what are you presenting for, are you presenting it for a conference, are you presenting it to have an award, a bachelor degree award, a master's degree award, a PhD award. So it requires a more intensive aspect. For instance, in my example given here, after stating the topic of the research work, my name is there and my registration number, I went ahead to state what it is, what is the academic research for. So I now say it's being an internal defense presented to the department. So it's in your own way, it can be a conference paper presented. It can be an external defense paper. It can be whatever you have to be. So you have to state it that it's being an internal defense, as I stated here, to the Department of Science and Environmental Education, impartial fulfillment of the requirement for the award of Doctor of Philosophy degree. That is, I am actually working towards having a PhD in science education. University of Abuja, Abuja, Nigeria. This is more elaborate than the cover page, which only states my department and the school I'm in. It did not state the award of a degree I needed for it or whatever, and it did not state where I am actually presenting the conference. But in my title page, I have to state all this. So what is an abstract? You need to have the basic knowledge of an abstract. To simply put, an abstract is an outlook, a brief summary of your paper, of your whole project. Is a brief summary of your paper. It should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. An abstract must have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And everything should be summarized within a reasonable paragraph, just a paragraph can just summarize what everything is all about your research work. It is a well-developed paragraph and should be exact in wording and must be understandable to a wider audience. Anybody that picked your work, whether the person is in your field or not, it should be a work that is well explanatory, that every audience can be able to relate with. Then an abstract has a typical 150 to 250 word limit. Is between 150 to 250 word limit and have a fairly standard format. So which means that you don't need to write too long. Just give us a brief explanation of the topic of what you are writing about. You give us the research outlook or the objective of the research. You tell us how many methodology you are using. If it's one method, you state it. Then give us the findings of your results. You give us the recommendations. Yes, so we are now in chapter one. The chapter one is simply the introduction of your work, everything about introduction, and the introduction is made up of 9 components that I have listed out here. We have the background to the study. Number two, the statement of the problem. Three, the purpose of the study. Four, the research questions, hypothesis, delimitation of the study, significance of the study, operational definition of terms, and abbreviations. So we'll be looking into this one after the other. What do we mean by the background of the study? This includes basic definitions about the study, historical content, the current events of what the research is about, relating it with past events and other form of information. As well as you must also try to reference each of what you are talking about in order to know that there are evidences that have been put in place that somebody has worked on that and is suggesting that there's actually this sort of problem that needs to be researched. Once the contribution of other researchers in the field are identified, then gaps are shown, then you have to tell us what your research hope to fill. What gaps does your research hope to fill at the end of the research? So this is basically the background to the study, telling us the how, the what, the why, the who, the when, the where. All the questions that needed to be answered will be in your background of the study. Then the statement of the problem. The statement of the problem need to be well spelled out, and it require briefly addressing the following questions, such as what is the problem that the research will address? Then two, what are the goals of the statement of the problem? And this brings us to our next slide, the purpose. Some institutions call it the goals, some call it the objectives of the study. The objective should include not only the immediate purpose, which is the central topic of your research work, but it should be outlined it should be specific in line with the research questions. For example, if the specific objective of your research is to identify the causes of climate change, or to determine the effect of climate change, to determine the impact of climate change, and to assess the mitigation measures of climate change, you need to know that your research questions and hypothesis, if needed, must also be in line with the purpose of the study. So in getting the hypothesis, there are two major kind of hypothesis. We have the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis. When you talk about the null hypothesis, it refers to the negative aspect which states that there is no. While the alternate hypothesis, it refers to the positive aspect which says there is. So the difference between the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis is that one is stating there is no and the other is stating there is. And another thing is that you need to know that in referring to hypothesis, it must compare between two or more variables. Either you are comparing gender, whether if the respondents of male to female gender varies in terms of responding about the causes of climate change. You have to have a comparison. If there is no comparison, there is no need of you having an hypothesis. Then we have the delimitation. This simply states the area, the focus of your study, the area in which your study will focus on. Because in order not to have a very broad research work, you will limit it to a particular, maybe a geographical location, or you limit it to a sample size, or you limit it to population threat. So it describes the boundaries of the study, such as sample size, geographical location, or population threat. Then for significance, significance of the study is not really how important your study is, but it is more like who are the people that will benefit in your work. Who do you think will see your work and be of it will be of use for them? So you need to state it out. It's not definitely for you to be going for research, for you to be embarking on a research. It means that you find it important, you find it useful. So that is not the significance of the research. But in this aspect, the significance of the research is simply telling you to state out those. Is it the doctors that will benefit? Is it the engineers? Is it are teachers the ones to benefit? Is it the students that will benefit? State it out that okay, students are the ones to benefit from this research work, and tell us, give us reasons what you feel it will be useful. For instance, if you are talking about a new innovative teaching strategy, that will that may benefit teachers and students. So you need to tell us why it will benefit teachers. It will benefit teachers because there will be improvement in their teaching methodology. It will benefit the student because it may aid in more achievement and retention ability. So these are aspects that you need to state out when you are trying to talk about the significance of your study. Then the definition of terms. The definition of terms is not necessarily the definition from the dictionary. You might not necessarily use it as it is in the dictionary, but rather it is about what your work is saying concerning a particular concept. If your work is talking about climate change and you believe that climate change is all about flooding, you need to define climate change based on your operational definition of terms. If you are defining it based on the dictionary terminologies, it can be that climate change is the alteration of atmospheric weather conditions based on human activities. This is a more accurate way of defining climate change. But your work is simply stating an aspect of climate change, flooding, and you have to define it at that. So anybody that is reading your work will be reading climate change as flooding rather than climate change as the general definition of terms. Let's talk about abbreviation. When you are referring to abbreviation, you are trying to list out important abbreviation that has been used in your work. For instance, if you have made use of ICT during your work of writing your research, you need to state it out here. Everything that have been abbreviated in your work must be listed out, both the abbreviation and what it means. So the meaning is United Nations for UN, all that. So you have to tell us the meaning, you give us the abbreviation and give us the full meaning of the abbreviation or initials. So this is the end of chapter 1. My name is Tope Gloria Ayedo. I remain your number one academic coach in research writing and any other academic work for your assignments and projects. Thank you all for joining in and do have a nice and lovely day. Bye for now.